The last may not have been heard about the crisis between the Senior Staff Association of University of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abuja, over the suspension of 3 members of the association by the institution's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Olushola Oyewole. Members of the union insist that the Vice-Chancellor is witch-hunting members of its body. Meanwhile, members of the Academic Staff Union of the institution have asked aggrieved parties to seek appropriate ways of redress.
It all began when 3 members of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, FUNAP chapter, were allegedly suspended on the order of the Vice-Chancellor for what he described as their alleged acts prejudicial to the smooth running and governance of the university. This union leader said it was done in bad faith.
All they are trying to do is to place the whistleblowers on suspension so that there will not be an opportunity for them to give evidences where necessary, and they can continue to perpetrate their evils.
Defending his action, the Vice-Chancellor, who is in the eye of the storm, said due process was followed in the suspension of the 3 members of the union.
The union hasn't got the authority to remove the council of the university or the Vice-Chancellor, but to know that part of what is happening is that there's some development towards, there's some internal politics within the university system, and we are taking some action to ensure proper discipline within the system, which some people are resisting.
Meanwhile, members of the Academic Staff Union have waded into the face-off, and it has asked all parties to explore internal university mechanism in resolving the crisis.
Aggrieved members of staff are also employed to explore the lawful university's internal mechanisms of due process and seeking redress in the system. ASUUNAP therefore wants to assure members of the public to disregard negative publicity and misinformation being peddled and sponsored around by some aggrieved staff who are hell-bent in destroying the good legacies laid down by our founding fathers for personal aggrandizement and selfish interest at the expense of the system.
While this is ongoing, the University Authority has extended a mid-semester holiday granted the students following the violent protest, which resulted into wanton destruction of properties.
Cross River is the first state that is planning to officially recognize hawking. The state governor, Professor Ben Ayade, is promising a bill to protect the rights of street hawking in the state. According to Governor Ayade, the Hawkers Protection Bill, when passed into law, will permit them to move at specific times and location in reflective vests.
Hawking has been a long-standing African tradition, a practice which sees both children and adults carrying various items for sale. It's a common sight in almost all the states in Nigeria. But only recently, the Lagos state government announced a ban on hawking, although enforcement of the ban remains a challenge. In Calabar, the Cross River State capital, the act is also pronounced, and for some of the residents, the practice should be stopped.
It's not a good idea, but some parents do that because of conditions they find themselves. But it's still not a good idea though.
It's quite risky, how it is with drivers and all of that. The way they drive at a very top speed and all of that. It's risky to send your kids out there.
But for those involved in this form of trade, it's their only means of survival and achieving their dreams.
If no money for us, we cannot eat. Because of we have no money for us, we cannot eat that.
It's good because from here my mom can pay my school fees and do a lot of things for me.
I'm doing this business for my mother so that when I grow, I'll take care of her.
Interestingly, the state governor, Professor Ben Ayade, has his own unique way of addressing the situation.
When a man cannot afford to rent a store and telling him not to steal, you're going too far as government, because the supremacy of government does not allow you to know the agony of the downtrodden. So if government recognize the downtrodden, when your laws are intended to serve the weak and the poor, then God will rise in that nation. So the Hawkers Protection Bill must be key for Cross River State government. Don't also forget that we're also providing specific uniforms, which are a bit reflective, that shows that they're official and shows that they are in school and shows that they're only using a specific time hour to be able to do this hockey.
The governor appears to have the support of some residents.
The bill is very okay. There's another way in bringing up children.
For the Cross River State government, the passage of the Hawkers Protection Bill will help the authorities monitor the number of children involved and assist them in building a bright future.
The recent case of Lassa fever, which emanated from Delta State with the victim dying in Anambra State, is an indication that everyone needs to constantly be on guard in terms of preventing Lassa fever infection and other viral hemorrhagic diseases. In this next report, our correspondent Diomio Taibe reminds us of the basic routes to disease prevention within the populace and particularly in hospital settings.
It is important that I notify the nation through you that in the last 6 weeks, Nigeria has been experiencing Lassa fever outbreak, which so far has affected 10 states in the country.
This announcement by Nigeria's Minister of Health in January this year once again unveiled the chronic Lassa fever situation, which has been known to the country since 1969. In what may be described as the end of that round of outbreak which began in August 2015, about 19 states were affected with over 100 deaths.
Lassa fever is endemic in a few states in Nigeria, and we haven't been able to eliminate it yet. So there will be a few sporadic cases. There are two potential sources of infection. One is from rats, the other is from person-to-person transmission. Now, there's been a lot of focus on the rats. There hasn't been enough focus on the possibility of person-to-person transmission. This would happen, the most likely scenario where this happens is in hospital settings. And the best way to prevent this is for doctors and nurses to use personal protective equipment, so gloves, gowns, whenever they manage patients.
It takes a maximum of 21 days for it to manifest. It could be less, but a maximum of 21 days. And after that, the person may or may not start showing symptoms. Because there are people who have found out that are carriers. They get infected, but they don't manifest. But there are few and in between. So when they start manifesting, they display signs of illness and fever, joint pain, abdominal pain, difficulty in breathing, and if it gets worse, either treated or untreated, then the person starts giving the terminal symptom of bleeding from orifices, the nose, the eye, the ears, and any part of the body.
On the 18th of August,
the news of the death of a 54-year-old medical doctor who was referred from a private hospital in Delta State to the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital in Anambra is a wake-up call for everyone that Lassa fever and indeed other diseases hardly take a break from being infectious.
Please make sure every food item is covered using non-porous containers like plastic. If you buy your sack of gari, please pour it in a plastic that you can cover and seal. For the health workers, infection prevention control, assume everybody is infectious until otherwise, to have an infection prevention control policy that you remind everybody, let's make it a minimum of monthly. Then they should have what we call high index of suspicion.
There are few laboratories in Nigeria at the moment that have the capacity to test for Lassa. However, one of the key priorities of the new leadership of NCDC is to establish a network of public health labs that have the capacity, understand the processes, and can support the country in making diagnosis of viral infections, or in fact, any infectious disease.
Regular hand washing, food and environmental hygiene should not be about being frightened, but about making these positive practices a way of life. If you have information on suspected disease emergencies, do call the Nigeria Center for Disease Control toll-free line showing on your screen. Yomi Otaiba reporting for Channels Television News.
You're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, celebrating 21 years of professional broadcasting. Let's quickly shift gears now, shall we? To business news with Anne Waudo.
Thank you, Gimba. Let's talk business now. It was a bearish week at the Nigerian equities market as investors remain very skeptical of the domestic bourse's outlook. The banking and industrial goods indices were dragged lower by price declines in Zenith Bank and Dangote Cement. The all-share index declined by 0.72% to 27,450.91, with a market capitalization of 9.4 trillion naira. Total volume traded fell by 18.08% to 1.12 billion shares, valued at 13.84 billion naira, and traded in 15,625 deals. Market breadth was negative, with 27 gainers against 23 losers. FCMB led the week's decliners with 14.96%, while Seplat was the highest gainer with 14.58%. GT Bank, FBN Holdings and Diamond Bank maintained the top positions by volume, collectively accounting for 25.06% of the total volume traded during the week. The Central Bank of Nigeria plans to offer 212.85 billion naira in treasury bills, and this will mature between 91 days and 1 year, but that would happen on August the 31st. The CBN will sell 45.85 billion naira worth of the 91-day bills, 62 billion naira worth of the 182-day paper, and 105 billion naira of the 1-year debt. Payment for the purchase will be effected on Thursday next week. But analysts are expecting investors to be cautious ahead of this auction and take cues from the stop rates and July inflation figure due for release next week. Rates at the interbank market eased 207 basis points this week to close at 18.24% as system liquidity swung to a positive balance. This week's improvement comes as the Apex Bank makes efforts to mop up liquidity. Rates are expected to further moderate in the coming week, and this is owing to expectations of OMO inflow worth 129.10 billion naira. But analysts are saying the key risk is the possibility of even more aggressive OMO auctions by the CBN. As the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries prepare for its meeting in Algeria, the Secretary General of the organization, Mohamed Barkindo, sees a growing understanding between members and non-members that action is needed to manage crude production. This is in order to support prices. Though not so clear on the possibility of an agreement on freezing production levels, Mr. Barkindo maintains that nothing is impossible in the current situation. According to him, no country in OPEC is immune to low prices. OPEC members will meet on the sidelines of the International Energy Forum, which groups producers and consumers in Algeria from September the 26th to the 28th. Let's move now to the crude oil market, where prices were modestly higher as traders react to comments from Fed Chair, that's Janet Yellen, the dollar movement, and reports of missile activity in Saudi Arabia. Brent futures for October were up 0.44% at $49.89 a barrel, while U.S. crude was at $47.60 a barrel. Oil prices touched the day's highs after reports that a projectile fired from Yemen hit a power relay facility in Najran, south of Saudi Arabia. And that wraps up business news for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Wawade. Back to you, Gimba.
Next on the news at 10, Samson Siasia resigns as Dream Team's sixth coach, blasts Nigerian Football Federation over alleged ill treatment. That's on Sports News. Join us again.